the grand theater of ancient history, where empires rise and fall like tides, one name stands out, a name that, for a time, made the mighty Roman Republic tremble to its very core. This is the story of Hannibal Barca, the Lion of Carthage, a military genius whose audacity and brilliance nearly brought Rome to its knees. Born in 247 BC in the powerful city-state of Carthage, Hannibal was destined for a life of conflict. His father, Hamilcar Barca, was a renowned general who fought Rome in the First Punic War. The story goes that as a young boy, just 9 years old, Hannibal was taken by his father to a temple. There, with his hand on the altar, he swore a sacred oath, an oath of eternal, unrelenting enmity towards Rome. This childhood promise would define his life and shape the course of history for decades to come. When the Second Punic War erupted in 218 BC, Hannibal, now the commander-in-chief of the Carthaginian army, did the unthinkable. Instead of a predictable sea invasion, he conceived a plan so audacious, so daring, that his Roman adversaries dismissed it as impossible. He decided to march his army, a formidable force of 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and, most famously, 37 war elephants overland from Spain, across the treacherous Pyrenees, and then through the icy, formidable barrier of the Alps. The journey was a brutal ordeal. His men faced freezing temperatures, treacherous mountain passes, avalanches, and attacks from hostile local tribes. Thousands of soldiers and most of the elephants perished along the way. But against all odds, after a grueling 15-day crossing, a weathered and diminished, yet unbroken, Hannibal descended into the plains of northern Italy. He had emerged like a phantom from the mountains, catching the Romans completely by surprise. What followed was a masterclass in military strategy. At the Battle of the Trebia, he used the cold and the river to his advantage, luring the overconfident Romans into a devastating trap. Then at Lake Trasimene, he orchestrated one of the largest and most successful ambushes in military history, concealing his entire army in the morning mist along the lake's shore and annihilating the Roman legions as they marched into his snare. But it was at Cannae in 216 BC that Hannibal would achieve his magnum opus, a victory so complete that it is still studied in military academies today. Facing a Roman army nearly double the size of his own, Hannibal employed a brilliant and infamous double envelopment tactic. He intentionally weakened his center, allowing the massive Roman force to push forward into a crescent-shaped formation. As the Romans pressed their advantage, Hannibal's elite cavalry, having routed their Roman counterparts, swung around to attack the legions from the rear. The trap was sprung. The Roman army was completely encircled, packed so tightly they could barely lift their weapons. The result was a horrific slaughter. By the end of the day, an estimated 50,000 Roman soldiers lay dead on the field. The news of Cannae sent shockwaves through Rome. Panic gripped the city. The people were terrified, believing an attack on Rome itself was imminent. The phrase Hannibal ad portas, Hannibal is at the gates, became a common saying, a way for parents to frighten their children into behaving. For over a decade, Hannibal rampaged across Italy, undefeated in every major engagement, a constant, terrifying presence on Roman soil. Yet, ultimate victory remained elusive. Despite his battlefield genius, Hannibal lacked the siege equipment and the necessary reinforcements from Carthage to mount a direct assault on the heavily fortified city of Rome. The Romans, under the stoic leadership of Fabius Maximus, adopted a strategy of avoidance, shadowing Hannibal's army but refusing to engage him in another pitched battle, slowly wearing down his forces. The tide finally turned when a brilliant young Roman general, Scipio, took the fight to Carthage itself, forcing Hannibal to be recalled to Africa to defend his homeland. There, at the Battle of Zaima in 202 BC, the two great commanders finally met. This time, it was Scipio who proved the master of tactics. He successfully countered Hannibal's elephants, and, for the first and only time in his career, Hannibal suffered a decisive defeat. The war was over. Carthage was humbled, and Hannibal was forced into exile. Hunted by the Romans for years, he wandered the courts of Eastern kings, ever the enemy of Rome. Finally, cornered in Bithynia in 183 BC, and unwilling to be paraded through Rome in a triumph, the old general chose his own end, taking a vial of poison he had long carried for such a moment. Hannibal Barca's life ended in defeat and exile, but his legacy is one of triumph of will, strategy, and sheer audacity. He was the boogeyman of the Roman Republic, a military mastermind who fought against impossible odds and left an indelible mark on the art of war. The world remembers him not for the poison that ended his life, but for the brilliant campaigns that made him the terror of Rome. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more tales from history. We'll see you next time.